So I beat Jedi Survivor. Yay. Um, I wouldn't say the game is bad. It's just meh. Like just about every aspect of it is meh. You probably heard of performance problems. I could mostly play it fine, but I'm pretty lenient when it comes to performance. From the old days, I had to play Doom 3 was like 4 FPS. I could manage that. But the game looks meh. So it definitely doesn't justify the system requirements that it has. I mean, the environments aren't even bad, they're just mostly generic, but the characters, especially their faces, they just look washed out like 99% of the time. In a couple of specific places, like you can position them so that they get some color and contrast, which makes me think that it's a general lighting issue in the engine or perhaps the port. I don't know, but almost the whole game, everyone just looks like their saturation is turned down or something. Uh, the writing is meh. The first half of the story is just as straightforward as it gets, then comes the big twist, which is kind of just nonsensical. Like, several aspects don't make sense, but I mean, I won't spoil it here, just in case someone cares. And after that, suddenly every idea the writers had gets thrown into a giant pile in the game, which kind of, I guess it makes it move a bit. It's more interesting than the first half, but it also feels a lot like the latest Star Wars movies, where one seemingly huge event is being thrown at you after another so fast you get whiplash, and none of them get properly developed, and all are just forgotten in minutes. Like, something supposedly super threatening happens and then gets resolved in 15 seconds because one character has a like magic thingamajig. Boom. Okay, why did we need to care about it? I don't know. uh, there's of course the obligatory brush with the dark side that you have to have in every Jedi game, but it was it was implemented just in the most ham-fisted way possible. Like, the game literally pauses and waits for you to press the Embrace Darkness button. Now, you're not making a choice. There is no other option. You don't get any agencies, but you have to press the button. It got me like, press F to pay respects vibes. Just dumber. Like, just make it a cutscene. It's fine to have a main character in a story-driven game like this make choices that the plot requires, but don't pretend that it's me, the player, doing it. If there's only one thing that can possibly happen here, then just have it happen. Don't pause the game until I press the only button allowed for me. Anyway, none of the characters have any personality except like the big twist one, whose personality is being stupid and nonsense, not making sense. Like, they're not extra cringy or wooden as you sometimes see in crap games, but they're just bland. Uh, I guess you couldn't add any spice to any of them because Disney or something. They're so boring. In fact, one of the happiest moments for me was when the crew that you start the game with almost all get killed off early on. So I don't have to deal with their aggressive mehness. Like, I guess they probably just didn't even try to give those characters any personality, but it just doesn't seem like a... Well, I mean, because they knew they were going to kill them off immediately. It just... I don't know, it seems like a weird way to start a game by giving you a team that is just boring as characters. It's not a good introduction to the game. I don't know. Well, yeah, one of them survives and then tags along to future missions just to bore you a little extra with the most generic quips you ever heard. I guess Marin gets some style points for her drip, but even she's boring as a character. She, like, she does like useful things for the fight and the mechanics, kind of helping push the plot forward, but as a character, she's just nothing, just boring. They made a goth space witch boring. How the fuck? Like, only Grease sounds like his voice actor is trying at all. But yeah, I'm not even blaming the voice actors. They had nothing to work with. Okay, gameplay. Most of the game is traversing the environment, employing all kinds of like fancy mechanics like Jedi flips, which is what they call double jump for some reason. Uh, grappling hook, wall runs, so on. It's mostly competently done in the sense that it functions as intended, but very rarely are these sequences actually fun or tricky to pull off. They're just meh. There's way too much of it. It feels like padding. It gets better towards the end of the game. The more combat shows up, but I don't know, the first like 20 hours were, I think, mostly just swinging around or something. And some of those mechanics are just blatantly stupid. Like how our Jedi is unable to walk up a mild incline of wet rocks or gravel and just keeps sliding down helplessly. Like, you can have some kind of one-way passage mechanic, like, sure, why not? But do you seriously not come up with something that is at least vaguely plausible? Like, a toddler could clamber up some of the routes that are utterly impassable for what's supposed to be a Jedi Knight. Also, many edges that absolutely look grabbable are not, because the devs planned a slightly different route for you. Like, there's no real freedom in problem solving in this traversal. You never feel like you figured out a clever route, you just found the one carefully laid out for you. This seems like a bit of a trend in the design. There will be obvious solutions to problems that the game just doesn't let you take because it has a specific mechanic or puzzle in mind and you have to figure it out with game logic and actual logic. Like, you find a droid with its arm tangled in a cable, and at no point does the game address the option of simply using your lightsaber to cut it free. I know almost every game does this to some degree, but I expect a bit more polish from what's supposed to be a AAA game. Like, it's often just grating how obvious a solution is that you just can't take because it's not the one they planned. This also applies to some combat moves, by the way. Like, what you can block and what you can't is signaled by a red aura, which is, like, works fine mechanically, but it often bears no relevance to what the actual attack is. Like, you just can't parry this simple swing because you can't deal with it. Like, we needed this enemy to have an unparryable attack so that you'll be forced to dodge. Like, we couldn't be arsed to make a animation that kind of sells it in some kind of way. Oh well. As for actually finding the route you're meant to take, there is a map to help you get around, but good luck figuring out which way to go just because the objective is marked on it. Like, direction means nothing. You have to find the exact path, which is usually some kind of roundabout way, which, like, it's not, like, terrible from a level design perspective, but I mean, if you wanted to give me some kind of direction, like you marked the objective on the map, so I think you did, you should, like, also give some kind of pointer to where I'm actually supposed to go. I mean, you can just not do that. You could just not have a map, like some games don't. It's a decision. I just think that they made one decision and then didn't actually support it in game. Like, they wanted to show you the way, kinda, but then didn't. Unless we count that the map does show you where are, like, possible paths that you haven't checked yet. Like it shows basically passages to unexplored sections. So you can kind of make it work. It's not totally useless. It's meh. The paths that aren't the correct one usually have some kind of collectibles that you can trade in shops for cosmetics that are all resoundingly meh. Like, slightly different shade of brown or an extra strap for your jacket really doesn't matter. Neither does unremarkably different facial hair. Sometimes exploring rewards you with permanent power-ups, which is nice, or extremely rarely optional bosses. Those are actually fun. I wish they had more of those. Those are probably my favorite part of the game. Actually, all bosses. Like, boss fights were pretty good. Including the optional ones. Now, combat is, well, frankly, it's also meh, but it's fun purely by virtue of being combat. Like, it works well enough, but there's this issue that there's a billion moves, and most of them are useless unless you just want style points. Like, the problem is that once you start a move, you have to finish it. You can't interrupt an attack to block or dodge, which makes the fights feel kind of stunted. Like, you can't start a big attack unless you know the enemy will not attack for a couple of seconds. And sometimes there's multiple enemies. So you just end up blocking or dodging all the enemy moves until they've completed the combo, which, like, you can learn what their combos are, and you know, okay, now it's my turn to do a few attacks. And you can do a fancy attack if you like, but it just kind of doesn't matter. Just deal some damage and get back to blocking and dodging until it's your turn to attack again. Sometimes just being able to cancel your attack and do a block would have made the combat so much more involved and dynamic. Like, imagine real life, like we wind up for, I don't know, some big baseball swing, because some of these attacks literally take like 2 seconds to execute. And then you spot that the enemy, like, pulls out a knife and is gonna stab you. You don't get to, like, go through with your big swing. You will do some kind of dodge. You'll try to defend yourself. You can switch that up mid-movement. Not in this game. It would, like, just having that option would make the combat much more dynamic. Or maybe something like blaster fire not passing right through enemies, so you could try to position them cleverly. Just a thought. Like, that just looks horrible. Now, there's also a bunch of side content in the game, like some kind of gardening mini-game. And something to do with fish, I think. I don't know why any of that is in the game. Literally, who asked for Farmville in their Star Wars game? I can't comment on those any more than that, because obviously I ignored them entirely. Like every sane person playing this game. Yeah, that's about all I had to say. Like, it's not a terrible game. It's like fine. I give it like a 6 out of 10. It's just meh.